Hi everyone, welcome back for another episode of Adams for the Love of Movie Picks. Just want to apologize there, folks, for the lateness of this video. Normally I would do it on a Sunday night. It's obviously Tuesday, the long weekend. I just was busy and I was too tired and I just didn't get around to it till tonight. So here we are with the video tonight on Tuesday. So in this episode we're going to be talking about the 1995 film Sudden Death, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. Now, funny enough, I'd never even heard of this movie until, last week. The only reason I heard about it is I was reading an article online. They're basically listing various movies that were they were saying were rip-offs of other famous movies. And this movie, they're saying, is basically a rip-off of Die Hard. Now, I can see the comparisons, but in my own personal opinion, it has enough of its own storyline that I think it could stand alone away from Die Hard. So the premise of Sudden Death, and this is kind of where the Die Hard thing comes in. You've got, a lone civilian, like he's not necessarily there to take on the bad guys on purpose, fighting up against a group of terrorists. But for me, that's where the similarities end. So in Die Hard, it was Bruce Willis. It's Jean-Claude Van Damme in this one. Die Hard is Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis was a cop, so in my opinion, he's a little more suited to take on the terrorists. Not as much of a surprise per se. He's also taking on a bunch of terrorists in an office building in L.A. Who basically have come to, end up holding his wife hostage. In this one, Jean-Claude Van Damme plays a former fireman who just happens to be, he's been out of the actual firefighting game for a while due to a very personal loss of a civilian on the job a couple of years prior to this incident, and basically is like a fire inspector at the hockey arena. So instead of being an office building, it's a group of terrorists take the vice president hostage at the seventh game of the Stanley Cup final between Pittsburgh and Chicago. And obviously, not a real seventh game, but a fictitious one. But funny enough, they used some real hockey players in this one. But yeah, for me, that's where the difference is. He's a fireman. The only thing that I found that was kind of corny, knowing Jean-Claude Van Damme, obviously Jean-Claude Van Damme knows martial arts, what have you. The only thing I found that was kind of weird is that you got this fireman who just happens to know martial arts and how to fight and operate guns and be a badass. That for me probably was the only part of the movie that was a little bit unbelievable. But be it as it may, it's not totally out of the realm of possibility. So the thing I loved about this movie was, it combines two things that I love, a good action movie and hockey. And the interesting thing is, this is one of those rare movies outside of an actual sports movie that has to do with hockey, where the premise of the entire movie takes place during a hockey game. Yet it's not a sports movie per se, it's an action movie, which is kind of a unique concept. I've never seen anything like that. And they cut quite a bit between the action and what's going on in the game. Excuse me, because without giving a hell of a lot away, it's not really spoiling anything because you're gonna find out anyways. The terrorists have based their demands, their ransom demands, time frame wise, to coincide with the hockey game. They basically say, deliver X amount of dollars by the end of the first period, and then deliver X amount of dollars again by the end of the second period. And then if you haven't, and then basically if they don't do it, they start off by killing a hostage. Because they take the vice president and a bunch of other VIP people hostage in the one of the suite boxes. They say we'll start off by killing one person. Then if you don't do it, then we multiply that. And then by the end of it, if you haven't met our demands by the end of the game, we blow up the arena and everybody in it. So it's kind of neat how they tied the game in with the movie, with the storyline and the way the movie goes. And of course, Jean-Claude Van Damme's character. First of all, he's at the game, like I said, he's the fire inspector at the arena. He's also brought his kids there, and they end up taking his daughter hostage. His son is still sitting in the seat during the entire time this is going on. And of course, he sets out to rescue her, and at the same token, he disarms a good majority of the bombs. So that basically, they cause as minimal damage as possible at the end of it. Now, in terms of other actors besides Jean-Claude Van Damme that I recognize, there's Powers Booth, who plays the main lead terrorist, Joshua Foss. The only other one that I really recognize in this is an actor called Dorian Harewood, or Harwood, plays the lead FBI agent, Hallmark. Other than that, I don't really recognize anybody in this, other than some of the hockey players. Now, I don't know if it's the actual hockey players playing it, but there's like, you know, Ed Belfour is the goalie for Chicago, and you got Jaromir Jagr playing on Pittsburgh, you know, like that. Like, I recognize some of the hockey player names, and whether or not it's the actual hockey players playing them, I couldn't tell you. One thing that is really shocking about this movie, like, I knew there would be some level of violence, and it would be, you know, it's an 18A movie. The amount of just non-stop violence in this is definitely on par with the original Die Hard, if not maybe a smidge greater. It's just like people you aren't expecting to die, and just the brutality of it, just the terrorists just showing no remorse. It's you know, definitely in your face violent action movie. So yeah, if you're like me, never heard of this movie, and you know, looking for something different to watch, Sudden Death is definitely your movie. I highly recommend it. Yeah, that's all I got for tonight, folks. We'll catch you next weekend, probably next Sunday, for another episode. Until then, take care and have yourselves a good night.